Okay, everybody. Welcome to another SORBA session. This week, we're going to be speaking with Jason Finnell. He's the Executive Director of the Pedal Up program, part of the Shujwiya Foundation. I'm not really good at saying that name, but I think that I got it pretty close. And what the program is that it provides mountain bike opportunities to different boys and girls clubs across the Southeast. They already have a number of organizations that have mountain biking facilities on site at different boys and girls clubs. But we're looking for ways to partner with the organization to expand that reach and to provide mountain biking opportunities to kids that don't have the ability to get there on a regular basis. So Jason's going to go in and talk a little bit about the program. We certainly welcome you all to ask questions about Pedal Up to Jason. And if you have any questions, if you're watching this as a recording, you have any questions about the program, please don't hesitate to email Jen or I, and we can get you in touch with Jason and help you learn a little bit more about what he's got going on. But for that, I will pass it over to Jason. You want to introduce yourself and say a little bit about you outside of what you do and your son's wrestling routine?
Yeah, I could talk about that stuff forever. Unfortunately, it's in the blood. But yeah, my name is Jason Finnell. I have been in nonprofit in some way, shape, or form for I guess pushing 20 years now. I guess 19 technically. I grew up in the cycling industry. My dad was VP of sales for Lightspeed Titanium. So I've been around mountain biking, cycling for most of my life as well. Had some really cool experiences, really cool opportunities there, getting to travel to, trade
Hi,
shows
Peyton. Thanks for hanging out with us today.
across the world, races, old Norba national events, you name it, right? Was really, really fortunate to be able to tag along for a lot of that kind of stuff. And at the time, I knew it was cool at the time, but I didn't really know how cool it was. And, looking back on that, that definitely helped start kind of my love of mountain biking. I'm a mountain biker. I don't ride as much as I used to because these days I tend to be facilitating sporting events for my 10-year-old and probably here before too long for the 3-year-old too. But that's where a lot of my extra time goes. But I still am really passionate about helping boys and girls clubs partner with our foundation, the Scale of Family Foundation, and to help get more kids on bikes more often. That's kind of the goal and the mission of our organization, what we're trying to do. I think it might make sense to go ahead and jump in and show a little bit of the video that we've got. What you'll be watching is just a quick video from our annual mountain bike summit. And this is where Boys and Girls Club kids from across the Southeast region come to Dalton, Georgia for a day. They all hang out, they ride mountain bikes, we feed them pizza or Chick-fil-A, you name it. We've got races, we've got prizes, all kinds of fun stuff to keep it entertaining for them. But it's an event that we do once a year where we bring the Boys and Girls Clubs that are already participating in the mountain bike program on site and let them have a fun day for the kids to be on bikes, hang out, ride, enjoy themselves. So I'll cut you loose on playing that one for me, Philip.
You got it.
Uh-oh. Is our audio working?
Nope.
We got to make sure we've got the sound bites from Jen. She was
What's that?
I said, hey, is the audio not working?
Oh, it was playing through my ears.
Oh, it was okay.
Yeah, I don't
Yeah,
know.
maybe it's just from my end.
No, I had no audio too.
Okay,
Yeah.
well, how do I fix that? I don't know how to fix that. Because it was definitely playing through my end. I wonder.
There.
There you go.
There we go. Yeah.
Didn't like my headphones.
Can you start over?
When I see a project like
You
this
got it.
in person. When I see a project like this in person, it's just amazing for the whole community, but for the kids as individuals who are exposed to bikes at an early age and who can take that love for mountain biking throughout them in life and maybe even pick it up later or continue from today. It's so important to make sure that when we say we believe that everyone deserves access to the social, physical, and mental benefits that mountain biking provides, that everyone means children too.
Biking now is not the same as even when we were children. You know, you have a lot more congested areas, and you're giving all of these children a place that they can really just expend the energy, but not have to worry about being hit by cars or safety in general. I know the family's super appreciative of the programs, the hard work that all these directors put in, of the hard work of all of the program people put in to put their time and invest to make this a better program for the kids and for Pedal Up.
Number 36. See you on the full track. Did you do the top drop? What was your fastest time? First lap or second lap? Top drop? 1,000. 1,000 what? Minutes, seconds, what? 1,000 minutes. Look where he's sitting and smoking, bro. There's no way I can do it. 59 seconds.
SORBA is the Southern Off-Road Bicycle Association. We have 47 chapters, so we support mountain biking throughout the Southeast. Our mission statement is that we believe everyone deserves the social, physical, and mental effects that mountain biking provides. It's so beneficial to all the people who participate, and all of us who are involved are big mountain bikers, and it's a very important thing to us. For any SORBA chapter interested in doing something like this, it would be amazing for their chapter to see getting children on bikes early on, because that's the future of mountain biking. So when we want to get everyone involved in mountain biking, starting with the kids, there's really no better place to start.
Cool. So we can jump to the history page. That's great. Thanks, Philip. I think that gives everybody a little bit of context just in terms of like how fun it can be for a group of our kids to get together and like just spend a day on mountain bikes. It doesn't take a whole lot. It doesn't have to be some fancy trip or even some fancy gathering or event. That was literally like some pizzas, some t-shirts, a couple prizes for time trials and other events that we had, and it was just the bikes. We've got some decently well-built facility at the Dalton location in Georgia, and that's where we hosted that. I want to say, Jen, you probably remember better than I do, but I know we had over 100 kids participate that day. In my mind, it was closer to like 120. But it was a fun day, and we do that every year. So jumping into kind of the history of the foundation, the foundation namesake, Carlo Scaiola, he grew up in Milan, Italy. He met his wife there, Linda. Linda is from Dalton, Georgia. And after his passing, he was an avid cyclist, and they wanted to do something to honor his memory. He loved bikes, loved sports in general. He's a big soccer guy, big soccer fan too, I think. But initially, when they first came to the Boys and Girls Club, or to the first Boys and Girls Club they brought this to, it was to the Dalton Club, and they purchased a number of mountain bikes, along with a trailer to transport the bikes to the local mountain bike park. They also provided some funding for like fencing and stuff. The Dalton, Georgia Club is pretty unique. It's a standalone facility, and it sits on about 12 acres. So they've got a lot of space, right? Like when you have 12 acres, you can do a lot with that much space. But they helped purchase the bikes and then the trailer. And initially, the kids would load up the bikes, and they would ride 3 or 4 miles to the mountain bike park, over the summer, and they would have 2-3 hour days where they would go ride, bring a picnic, eat lunch, that kind of stuff, and then load back up and come back to the club. To give you some brief context on the Boys and Girls Club and kind of how it works, you have 2 main programs. You have a summer program and then an after school program. The summer program, you have the kids all day long. Most of the clubs run from 7 a.m. to 6 p.m. So you're talking about 11-hour days, right? Whereas the after school program, most of the kids are arriving at the club 3:30-ish to 4, and they're typically being picked up by the parents, sometime in the 5:30 to 6:30 range. So in the summer, when you have the kids for that many hours in a day, you can get pretty creative. There's lots of fun things, field trips you can do, and it's more limited in the after school program. So fast forward, I guess, kind of to where I came into the picture. I was working at the Boys and Girls Club in Dalton, and we, obviously saw the bikes, saw the trailers, thought, oh, wow, that was so cool. I'm a mountain biker. This is great. The kids were riding in the summer, but I just couldn't help but look at all the land we had in the back. And I'm like, man, we could probably ride bikes every day, or at least every day that's not raining and freezing, right? And so I was talking to my boss for a while at the time. His name was Robbie. He was the CEO. He's still there, actually. And I eventually like pestered him enough to where he was like, look, you want to try and build something so the kids can ride here, that's great. Just do whatever you want, as long as it doesn't cost any money. You can do what you want. And I'm trying to work through this in my head, like, how can I make this happen? And I was kind of friends with the guy that ran the local bike shop. His name was Shane Adams. And I started talking to him about it. And he's like, look, you need to go to the SORBA chapter. You need to go talk to them. We've got a pretty active group here. You need to reach out, talk to these folks, see if they might be interested in helping. I'm embarrassed to say, at that point in my life, I'd heard of SORBA, didn't really know what it was. I was like most people that showed up to the trails, rode the trails all the time, was so thrilled for all the single track that had been established in the Chattanooga area and North Georgia. Had no clue that there were people actually out there, doing work to maintain the trail system, the upkeep, building it in general, raising money. Like, had no clue, completely oblivious to what actually went on in a SORBA chapter and how much they brought to the table. But I reached out to the president at the time. His name was Rick Moon. Told him kind of what I had in mind. He invited me to come speak at the next meeting, the next chapter meeting, which was a local Mexican restaurant in Dalton. And I showed up and gave an impassioned speech. And they said, all right, let's think about it for a little bit. And then they got back to me the next week and said, okay, we're going to help you. There were probably 12 to 15 of us with wheelbarrows and shovels and hand rakes that built the first kind of section of the trail, which is kind of actually what you see behind the kids in that picture. It was very small. It was like 3 rollers and 2 berms. And then we, had a guy cut kind of a perimeter trail in the grass around the back portion of the property. It took us 3 full days to do all of that stuff by hand. It was backbreaking, very physically demanding work. We all got some blisters and shared some sweat and put some sweat equity into it. And the next week, immediately the kids were on it and they loved it. They absolutely loved it. Like, it was a smash hit. Over the next 9 years, we continued to develop that facility. The next year we had 1 skid steer that Shane Adams of Bear Creek Bikes, owner at the time, he kind of quarterbacked that and was in the skid steer. He's the only person that really knew how to run one at that point. Then the next year we had 2. Then the next year we had 2 and an excavator. Then we had the city of Dalton donating, 20 trucks of dirt, 30 trucks of dirt, year after year. By the time it was all said and done, we'd have 60, 70 people out there volunteering at any given time. And every year, faithfully, the local SORBA chapter, they sent volunteers. They would come and help maintain the bikes that we bought. They would invite the kids to like skills training and demonstration, to basically like send somebody that was really focused on riding and teach the kids, hey, this is how we should corner, this is how we should climb. They would volunteer to assist in the trips to local mountain bike park, and it really became like this kind of symbiotic relationship. They actually would raise money to help fund needs of the program. You're not talking about massive amounts of money every year, but it was stuff that mattered. Adding $1,500 a year in a budget for bike repairs at the local bike shop, for tubes, for a new crank arm, whatever, pedals. You'd be amazed how far something like that would go. And so eventually the Scaler family, they liked this model so much that they said, hey, we want to invest more in this, and we want other boys and girls clubs. We want to try and expand this program to other boys and girls clubs. We started in Knoxville, and then I want to say Cookville was the next spot, but over the last, and eventually they brought me on to kind of help in the process. And so they brought me in specifically to go visit local boys and girls clubs, evaluate the facility, see if we felt like it was a location that we could replicate, a staff that was excited and passionate about it. We came up with a formal grant application process, and we hammered out a number of clubs over the last like 5 years. Right now we're at 22 locations. We're all over the Southeast. We're in Georgia, Tennessee, Kentucky, Alabama, Florida. We're hoping to punch into the Carolinas, hopefully in the next couple of years. But there's still plenty of room for growth. It very much has become kind of there's this like symbiotic relationship between the Boys and Girls Club, the Scale of Foundation, help provide the funding, and then the local SORBA chapter and or bike shop combination. Without those three pieces, it's very, very, very difficult for this to kind of function as well as it can. I think, one of the interesting things, from my end, and as we've developed this over the years, is just seeing groups of kids that typically would not have access to mountain biking opportunities, and how they have latched on to the mountain bike program, and how it ends up becoming one of their favorite parts of the Boys and Girls Club. Boys and Girls Clubs, they typically like focus on a handful of things: health, education, substance abuse prevention programs, sports and activities. And a lot of the sports programs that they typically run are traditional sports. You're talking about baseball, basketball, football, all great activities, great sports, right? But it's difficult in most cases to get them to kind of venture to a more non-traditional sport, or a historically less traditional sport like mountain biking. But the ability for the kids to kind of like latch on to the program and how fun it is for them. I'm like everybody else, when I probably in this Zoom meeting, when I grew up, like, you get that first bike and your world expands, right? Like your neighborhood just got bigger, your friend group just got bigger, your freedom just got bigger, right? And I can tell you this, like, a lot of the kids in the Boys and Girls Clubs that we serve today, they didn't have that same experience. And, and I think there are a number of reasons for that. Maybe, some of it has to do with safety, some of it, and access to places to ride, or access to a bike to ride, right? But then I think a big piece of that is cultural too. The kids for me to get my, social interaction, it was hop on the bike, ride down to, Joey's house or Ryan's house. And that was, that's where you got your social interaction. It's not like that now. They can get that from a text message group, from social media, from their video games. And so I've seen over the last 15 years of kind of being involved in this, I've seen 16 and 17-year-olds that have never owned a bike, don't know how to ride, and have never ridden. And, and then the other end of the spectrum is you have a 5 or 6-year-old that's trying to learn how to ride. But the wonderful thing about cycling, and everybody here in the Zoom, I think they know this and understand this, but it meets you where you are. And whether you're just beginning and just trying to learn how to get on the bike and get in the saddle, or whether you're racing to win, the Tour de France, or goodness gracious, what's the big one in Colorado? The Leadville, something like that. Like we have a saying in our riding group, and it's the pain stays the same. You just go faster. And there's so much to be learned and so much benefit for our kids in terms of being outdoors, being on a bike, learning to push themselves, learning to take some risk, but also in a safe space, a controlled environment. Hey, we've got a helmet. Hey, we've got some rules and some guidelines, and we got some instructors, and we've got a professional staff that are there to keep an eye on you and make sure you're not doing anything too crazy outside of your current abilities. It's just been a lot of fun to see over the years. It's been a real blessing to be able to help participate in this program. And I can honestly say, like, this program would have never, reached the level that it's out at now if it had not been for SORBA. Like, if it had not been for Rick Moon and Jeannie Dashinger and all the folks that were there at that first Northwest Georgia SORBA chapter meeting that said, okay, yeah, we'll commit to a long, hard weekend of doing this. Do you have machinery? Nope. Do you have a budget? Nope. What do you have? I've got some shovels, but not enough for everybody. We're going to need you to bring some too. Okay, we'll do it. And if it hadn't been for that kind of first push, it would have never gotten to where it is now, and we wouldn't have had a model to build from. We know that clubs, Boys and Girls Clubs, that can build a strong relationship with their local SORBA chapter and get buy-in there with this program, we know they're going to be successful. And the foundation, it's not huge. We don't have big budgets and education budget and communication director, and we don't have all that stuff. It's me and the family and one other staff person. It kind of helps from an accounting standpoint, but we know that when a SORBA chapter agrees to jump in and help, we know that we're going to be successful because they understand mountain biking. They understand the culture. They know who to talk to, for the local bike shops. It's going to be willing to help provide the assistance and the types of things that they need to be successful. They know in many cases the folks in the community who are going to have a heart for a project like this and are willing to donate as well. To give you some kind of context is in terms of how things work. Once a club submits an application, if we approve, then typically they're funded with a one-time $25,000 grant. That's typically what we've done in the past. And then if the clubs if they're smart, they take our money and then they leverage that for matching gifts, in the community. They find other cyclists that are willing to help fund the project. And we've seen a lot of clubs be really, really successful in bringing fundraising to the table. And, it's not that everything's about money, but we know like what gets funded gets done. And, SORBA chapters across the Southeast have stepped in and helped bridge the gap and make the connections to the Boys and Girls Club. I like to think too, it's not just kind of a one-sided thing. I think SORBA is definitely bringing the most to the table on this, but Boys and Girls Clubs, that's a well-recognized national brand. And when you get in the newspaper and it's, hey, the folks that made such and such trail system, it's called SORBA, and they're standing there next to the Boys and Girls Club at the Boys and Girls Club facility. They helped with the local Boys and Girls Club, so now your niece or your nephew or son or daughter, they're going to have access to a facility on site and structured programming. The mountain bike program, when the way we fund it, basically it's run daily, just like any of the rest of the homework programs they run or the feeding programs. And so you're talking about most of the kids there are getting on a bike 3 to 5 times a week. And to give you some average, so like the Boys and Girls Club in Dalton, they will average 150 kids a day at that location. So you're talking about 120 to 150 kids a day typically are on bikes riding that trail system. And most of the other Boys and Girls Clubs that we funded mirror at least similar statistics. So it's thousands of hours a year annually that kids are on a bike. If we go back to the very slide, which you don't have to go back there, Philip, but it's more kids on bikes more often. And we know this model works for that outcome because the Boys and Girls Clubs have the facility and they have the kids, hundreds a day in most cases, and they're open 5 days a week. And so there's literally nowhere else you can go with that much access and proximity to put kids on a bike every single day. Obviously, the more space and the larger land that you own or amount of land that you own, the better and more you can build out a facility. But like we've had clubs build what I would consider really successful facilities that were a quarter of an acre. You know, Boys and Girls Club programming is very structured, and so when kids come into the clubs, they are put with other kids their age, and within 1 to 2 years, and then they're same 2 staff people, and they're with those people as they move through their schedule throughout the day. So most of the clubs schedule a 1 hour time block. By the time you get the bikes out, get the helmets on, put the air in the tires, go kind of over a pre-ride meeting, you go ride for 30 to 40 minutes, then put the bikes back up, put the helmets back up. An hour it's not a huge amount of time, you know, when you're thinking of it in that context. And so you don't have to have some massive facility. If you've got 7 acres or 12 acres, great, but you know, that's not a requirement for a successful program. You know, a quarter of an acre really gets it done. We do ask that the funding is for on-site programs only. In the past, we've worked with like, okay, hey, the city owns the land next to us. It's literally touching the club, and they're going to grant us, you know, access to this land for an MOU for X amount of years for us to build a facility on site. Okay, we're great. We're good with that. As long as we have daily access to riding, that's the primary requirement of the program. We want kids to be on bikes every day. And we know the more times we get them in a saddle, the more fun they have, the more benefits they're going to get out of it. So I've been rambling a lot, and I could ramble on lots and lots more. There are all kinds of awesome stories and success stories and all kinds of other things to talk about. But you want me to hit the mountain bike summit? So then this year's mountain bike summit, it's going to be run by the Cleveland, Tennessee clubs. It's actually, I think, going to be in their Meigs County location, which is about 30 minutes away. But very large facility. They've got some neat features on their mountain bike facility there. We're expecting over 100 kids, games, prizes, the whole nine, just like always. We're always asking SORBA chapter volunteers to come participate in those meetings or in that event as well. And that's something, if you had an interest in participating or even just coming out and watching and seeing, reach out to Jen or Philip or myself, and I'm sure we can help find a spot for you. I think that's all I've got, at least immediately. Philip, is there anything else you want me to cover specifically, or do you want me to try and take some questions?
I think that was great, and I think questions is a good thing. And I think the only thing that I'd add that, you know, we've had some conversations, you, Jen, and I, and I think one of the impacts that I remember from our conversations is not only the mountain bike side of things, but getting these kids out in what they call nature, and being out in the woods when, you know, it's not really out in the woods for us, but their interpretation of being in the woods is a lot different than ours. So, you know, just, I think that experience is as beneficial as the mountain biking experience. Yeah,
it's just, you know, culturally, kids today, they're comfortable inside. They like to be inside. They can do all the things that they do every day inside. And so I'm in complete agreement with you here. Like one of the best things about this is it's getting kids outside. They're breathing fresh air. They're having to work a little bit. They're having to break a little bit of a sweat. You know, and then obviously there's the fun component. There's not much that's more fun than a mountain bike, in my opinion. But yeah, anything we can do to kind of break the mold of the video game cycle, the screen cycle that culturally we're we are all on, self-included. I can't point too many fingers. I'm embarrassed sometimes at how many hours my iPhone says I've spent on that stupid thing. But this is good, and we know it's good, and there are lots of reasons that it's good. Getting kids outside on bikes, fresh air, breaking a sweat, turning the pedals over, having to get a little bit uncomfortable in some spots. That's good. That's good for everybody. That's good for them individually. It's good for the people they're around. That's good for our culture. Yeah.
Does anybody in the that's watching want to open it up for questions?
Not all at once, please.
We don't have any questions right now. I'll just add for everybody that after attending the summit that they had last year, I highly recommend that you attend, even if your chapter doesn't have the Boys and Girls Club nearby that would be appropriate for the program. It was just a fun day, and the kids just warm up to you so quickly. They kind of think you're a staff person too, and they'll walk up to you and ask, will you help me adjust my seat? Will you, help me look at this? Why isn't this working like I want it to? Or will you show me how to work, something on the bike? And it was just really fun, and they instantly just draw you in and make you feel like you're a big part of the day as well. So if anyone here is available to go, was what, the 18th, July 18th? I highly encourage it. It was a great time.
July 18th. Thursday, July 18th. It'll be from 10 a.m. to 3 p.m. So
Yeah, Jason, this is Kevin McCone. I don't have any questions for you, but I really appreciate your presentation, and thank you for what you're doing. And during our next chapter meeting here in Mississippi, I'm going to pass on this information. I think it's a really good program, and thank you for what you've done.
Oh yeah, happy to do it. Appreciate the comment, Kevin. I can say, like I said, I grew up in the cycling industry, right, and was around mountain bike stuff forever, and I'm truly embarrassed that I did not know everything that SORBA did and understand it completely. But after obviously they made a believer out of me, and I became a member, and next thing I know, I was doing trail days at the local trail system and volunteering and that kind of thing. And so I definitely think that the kids probably get more out of it than the SORBA chapter does, but at the same time, I think some of the smiles and stuff that you get when you're out there and you're working with the kids, those are pretty darn rewarding too. Plus, it's helping cultivate that next generation of mountain bikers, and hopefully. And a lot of these kids, they're probably not going to have access to stuff like this necessarily. We've got, in that club, the picture you're looking at, that's the Dalton, Georgia club. So you're talking about 60% of the kids, plus single parent families, 90+% free and reduced lunch program. They are all, I don't know if you can see, but those are specialized bikes and trek bikes. That's part of the requirements of the grant, is we want the clubs to purchase like serviceable bikes. We don't want stuff from Walmart or Kmart that's going to fall apart and we're not going to be able to repair, right? And so, they're on quality bikes. They're getting to ride quality trails, quality trail systems. We really encourage clubs to at least work with a professional trail builder for design, if nothing else, and in many cases to build, like the one in I wish I had some video of the one that just got finished in Murfreesboro, Tennessee, but just an amazing flow track that they built. It rivals anything. It was I think it was Dave Huff. I'm pretty sure the name of his company is All Out Trail Designs. But we really encourage the clubs to do that, especially if they have like a smaller area, because the more rideable you can build that facility, the more fun they're going to have, the more they're going to ride. So, but I appreciate you guys. I appreciate all the SORBA chapters and everything you do. And I, as a member myself, might be a little late on my membership. Don't tell anybody if that's the case. But I know all the hard work that you guys do, and you don't get as much credit and as much recognition as you should. Because there are lots and lots of folks out there that are enjoying those trail systems, the races, you name it, and have no idea the amount of work and effort that goes on in the background. From the swinging the shovel or the pick to writing the grants and doing the fundraising. There's lots of hours that go into everything you guys do. So really appreciate you all.
If
Hey, Jason, I had a quick question if I could. Sorry,
Yes, sir.
Yeah, my name is Rob Burgess. I'm with the Gulf Coast Youth Mountain Bike Association. We're pretty much SORBA and PORC members that started a youth organization to start, I guess, seeding teams for the Alabama Cycling Association. So I guess my question would be how could we partner with Level Up and the local boys and girls club down here in Mobile and in Pensacola, because we have several, and we've been talking about as a board, we've been talking about how do we reach the underprivileged kind of inner city kids to try to get them introduced, because our we do the racing with ACA and we support that, but really underlying thing is just getting kids on bikes.
Yeah.
And so we don't make it a requirement to race with Gulf Coast Youth Mountain Bike Station. They join the Dirt Sharks or the Aggies, our team, but they're not qualified. They don't have to race. We're just trying to get kids on bikes.
Yeah. And so we already have funded a club in Panama City, which is not too far away from you guys, but would love to entertain another one down closer, like Mobile area. I mean, that'd be amazing. So I think if you guys could kind of see if anybody in your organization has some connections to somebody at that Boys and Girls Club, that usually speeds the process up a little bit.
Okay.
If we have to just come kind of fresh and try and explain, get an ear open and then explain. We have a little bit of credibility though with a lot of those folks, because we're technically we don't fund anything but Boys and Girls Clubs. And so because of that, Boys and Girls Club of America has made us a national partner. And so when we drop that little logo that says, hey, we're part of BGCA national partner system, folks tend to listen, but it can still be hard. If you've got to have an administration that wants to do this for it to be successful. And at this point, you've got to have an administration that wants to do it for us to want to fund it too, right? But
sure.
I think just open the door, get a conversation. You can pull me in. Philip and Jen will tell you I'm happy to talk. I talk way too much. So, but if we can get a conference call or something like that lined up, I'd be happy to kind of walk through a point similar to what we discussed today. And one of the things that I think I bring to the table for the Boys and Girls Club is I worked at one for close to 10 years, and I really do have a pretty decent understanding of fundraising in nonprofit world. And when I start explaining to them that, hey, this was the second most marketable and most funded thing that we did in Dalton, Georgia, and start talking about how cyclists as a group, they tend to have some discretionary income, at least some of them, and how easy it is to connect somebody to the Boys and Girls Club when they're a cyclist and you bring them down there and they see a kid on a mountain bike. I mean,
Absolutely.
It's instant connection, and then you get into some of the backstories of, hey, this is what this kid's dealing with. And looking at that kid on that bike, you wouldn't know any of that in the world. All you're seeing is smiles and sweat. And so it really is a pretty easy sell from a fundraising standpoint. Obviously I'm a little biased because I'm a mountain biker myself, but it just doesn't make a lot of sense to not be excited about it. But we've definitely had some CEOs and director of operations have been like, hey, this is not in line with our core mission, and no, we're not going to take it on.
Sure.
But that's few and far between, but it's happened. But just, if you can get us a conversation started, I'll be happy to jump in. I'll walk them through the whole thing, answer any of the questions, tell them why they need to do it.
No, I appreciate it. Yeah, I'll definitely reach out to you afterwards. I won't tie up everybody's time, but there's a major trail system right next to one of the Boys and Girls Clubs in Mobile, or
Yeah.
the trails at USA or South Alabama. They're
Yeah.
4 minutes away from the facility, so
Okay.
definitely some synergy there. But I'll reach out to you and we probably find some opportunities.
Yeah, and it's, you know, we hit on this a little bit earlier, but like most of the clubs, they really focus on those more traditional sports and then games, you know, dodgeball, all that kind of stuff. But at a certain point, you know, especially once you get into like junior high school, okay, well, we only have X amount of slots on the soccer team. We've got X amount of slots on the basketball team. And it's like, okay, well, if you're not getting picked up on those teams, what do you do then? You know, and that's where something like mountain biking makes a lot of sense. Something you can do if you're 5 or if you're 105, you know. So yeah.
Thank you.
Yep. Thank you.
We got time for one more question if anybody else has a question. Okay, well, perfect. Jason, thank you so much for your time. We really appreciate you sharing about the program. I'm excited about it. I know Jen's excited about it. I'm going to do everything I can to try to make it to that July event that's here in Tennessee, the summit, so we can continue to have SORBA presence there. But thank you so much for your time. Really appreciate it.
Oh yeah, thank you guys. I appreciate you both. Thank you for the opportunity to come visit with everybody and talk today.
And looking ahead for the next SORBA session, it's going to be on August 12th, and be on the lookout for the topic of that conversation and who will be the presenter. But until next time, we'll see you then. So thank you so much.
Yes.
Good session.